long time no see. Welcome back to my channel. Actually, I feel like I should be welcome to my channel. It has been so long. I am back in the States from a trip of a lifetime in Africa. I did make it home safely. Mom and Dad, Grandma, I know you're worried about me. I'm here. But I hope you guys got the chance to watch my short highlight video that I made. It's only like 2 minutes long. I uploaded it right before this video, and that may be enough for a lot of you. You may not want to know the nitty-gritty details of what we did while we were there. But if you do, if you're curious about what actually happened in Namibia, then you're in the right place. I'm gonna walk you through the entire trip right now with all the details. It was literally the most amazing trip of my entire life, and there's no way I'm gonna be able to do the community justice or even try and explain how great the trip was without the context of you actually seeing it firsthand. So it's gonna be a struggle to explain, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So welcome along to my month-long trip in Namibia, Africa. Also, I wrote an outline for this video, so I'm gonna be reading from my notes so I can stay on track and not get long-winded like you guys know I do every video. I'm gonna pause right here and let you guys meet the team. So we've got Milana from Missouri, Lily from Ohio, Sarah also from Ohio, Dina from way out in South Dakota, Jenna from Georgia, Zira from Texas, Macy from North Carolina, Kiana from Connecticut, Lydia also from Ohio, Juby, the one guy on our trip, he's such a trooper, from North Carolina, and then myself from Tennessee. So yeah, I, along with 10 other random people, got the opportunity of a lifetime to visit Namibia. If you don't know where Namibia is, it's at the bottom of Africa, just northwest of South Africa. So it's on the Atlantic Ocean. None of us knew each other before this trip. We were all strangers. So aside from some awkward preliminary video calls while we were preparing for the trip and figuring out what to pack, we finally got to meet in Indiana for a few days to do some immersion training. Immersion is the sector of Experience Mission, which is the organization that we went with. Immersion is more of like the long-term, it's like a program of long-term missions trips. So if I say immersion or if I say EM, that's all talking about the organization that I went with. Also, I'll have a link to Experience Mission down below in the description if you want to learn more about the trips or if you're curious to go on one yourself. I give the organization 6 out of 5 stars. Absolutely tremendous. I cannot imagine going with any other organization. Their hearts are definitely in the right place for missions. But anyways, this training in Indiana was for 4 different immersion teams that were launching at the same time. This training was very thorough. It was amazing. It was preparing our hearts and minds for being immersed in a different culture. It got pretty uncomfortable at times, but honestly, that's how it should be when you're about to just fully live in a completely different culture than your own. There's gonna be a lot of wake-up calls. So I'm thankful that EM took such a serious approach to the training before we even left the US. Early on in training, we found out that a member from a different team tested positive for COVID. So all the teams had to quarantine for a full 7 days before getting COVID tested and then leaving the US. Also, I want to note that it was a requirement that everyone test negative before even getting to Indiana. So this team member did test negative, but then they developed symptoms and then tested positive when they were in training. So there's nothing they could have done to prevent that. Everything was done the way that it should have been done. So yeah, we had a quarantine for a week, and that's honestly where the real adventure began. So where did we go? Somebody in the EM program had a bunch of land in Michigan and graciously allowed us to go camping on their property for the full week of quarantine. So we all camped in tents. There was no air conditioning. We were never inside. We didn't have plumbing. We took showers in like a shed with like a water bag. We had porta potties, used lots of hand sanitizer. It was honestly so amazing. I'm such a fan of camping. Each team got to know each other really well during this week. I mean, there was really nothing to do besides just like team bonding. And most of us didn't have cell service. So it was just honestly such a crucial, great week before going to Africa. And we got to prepare for like struggling living conditions. And looking back on the trip, I honestly cannot imagine going to Africa without that week of camping. Like, my team was so close, and I honestly attribute it all to the week of camping. So fast forward the whole week of camping, each team drove back down to Indiana to get COVID tested before leaving the US, and everyone tested negative, a blessing from the Lord. And then we all got to fly out from Chicago. So we rode a bus from Michigan to Chicago, and then all the teams separated. We all went to our different terminals, and my team started out with a 14-hour flight from Chicago to Qatar. So we flew over the Atlantic Ocean into the Middle East. Then I think we had a 3-hour layover before flying down to Johannesburg, South Africa. So I think that was like an 8-hour flight. And then we had a 6-hour layover there, which we had so much time, got to chill out. Then we had a 2-hour flight from South Africa up to Namibia. And that was a really rough flight, honestly. It was a very small plane. The turbulence was really bad. It was bumping the whole time. We were all all super nauseous, but once we landed, we were so thankful to be on steady ground, and we were in Namibia. So exciting. So we landed in Windhoek, which is the capital city, and then we had like a 5 to 6 hour bus ride to get to Henties Bay, which is where we did Worldview training. So it's on the coast of Namibia. This Worldview training was separate and apart from our training that we had in Indiana, and this was specific to the culture we were going to be with in Namibia. And it was held by our awesome EM Africa director, Hein. He is such a cool guy. He drives the coolest vehicle I've ever seen, his orange Land Rover. I took so many photos with this vehicle. I'm just so thankful that we got to spend so much time with him during this Worldview training. He's just such a cool guy. He's a born and raised Namibian who currently lives in South Africa, and he just knows all the community so well. He has a heart for missions. He taught us all the do's and don'ts of the different cultures, the tips and tricks. And we got to learn a little bit of Afrikaans, which is the native language of most of the people within Namibia that we encountered. Although most everyone spoke English, at least to some extent, so we got by with English, but it was really cool to like somewhat learn a new language. So aside from just the Worldview training, we got to see the coast of Namibia, the sunsets, the sunrises, the beautiful stars at night, the beautiful winter weather, which I will never get enough of. It was winter time in Africa because it's in the southern hemisphere. We met the sweetest family ever, Pastor Werner, his wife, his 2 kids. We played with them every single day. They taught us all kinds of tricks. We raced down sand dunes with them. We also went on a couple fun road trips while we were at Henties Bay. We drove to some sand dunes, and we literally got to ride in Hein's Land Rover through the sand dunes, feeling like a legit car commercial. It was literally just as beautiful as you can imagine. I felt like I was walking around a Microsoft screensaver. We got to climb the sand dune, and Dune 7 is the tallest sand dune in Namibia, so we got to climb it. The fastest time recorded of climbing it was like 2.5 minutes, like world record. We climbed it in like 20 minutes, and that was the first time on the trip that I used my inhaler because I was so winded and so out of breath. But oh my gosh, the views at the top were incredible. We also got to ride camels through the sand dunes, which was so cool. That honestly did not even feel real. Fun fact, my camel's name was Sheol, which I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but that's what hell is in the Bible. So heaven was riding hell. Also, a funny story, while we were there at the camel riding place, we were waiting in line, there were some parrots that we could play with. So I, got this parrot on my shoulder, and then he took off and ate the button of my ball cap. So in all the future pictures that you see with my pink hat on throughout the trip, because I only packed 1 hat, it's missing the button, so it's just a silver piece. That parrot literally ate the button of my hat. So after almost a week of training in Henties Bay, we had to leave sweet Pastor Werner and his family, and then we headed to our community of Ocho. It was like a full day in the van to get there, and we served here for almost 3 weeks, and I don't even know where to begin to start describing Ocho. I loved everything about that community so much. We stayed with the host family while we were there, Miss Hester and her husband Eric, and then Juby, the only guy in our group, he stayed in a different house a couple houses down with Miss Estelle and Mr. Peter and their high school son. So he got to hang out with a boy. He got a host brother throughout the trip. I was so happy for him. And Miss Hester is a school teacher, and Eric is a missionary, and they just exemplify Jesus so well, just so hospitable, and everything that they do is for the Lord, and it was just so inspiring the whole trip. We could not have stayed with better host families. And each day we were there in Ocho, it was packed with so many different activities. We were so busy. We woke up every day between 7 and 8 a.m. We spent most of our time in various schools across the community. All of the children that we encountered taught us so much about what it means to love freely and seek joy out of every situation. One of the schools we spent time at was the Tabitha Center of Hope, and it had young preschool kids in the morning that we got to play with, but then young teenagers would come in the afternoon, and there was also a women's club later with older women. It was such a joy to get to engage with all these different ages, to learn so much. While we were there, they'd asked if we could help clear some of the lands, clear some of the briars and thorn trees from the ground that the kids would play soccer on. So that was honestly one of my favorite days, was when we got to work with our hands and clear some of the land, and the kids helped us out too. There were some big rocks they would help throw over the fence. It was so cute. In addition to all the schools we spent time in, we learned some African dances from Miss Maria. She got us all moving every day. She is so full of energy, such a light to the world. We attended some church services, we spoke at some of them, we had some Bible studies, and we fellowshipped every evening after dinner. We went to some early morning workout classes thanks to Mondi talking us into that. We played volleyball at one of the local hostels. We went to some youth groups at the local high school. We even got to visit a horse farm with Miss Heidi. Oh, and Juby got to go hunting one day, so I'm happy for him on that. We even got to attend a real African braai, which is kind of their word for like a cookout. We had stir fries one night. I got to hand feed my favorite animal, an ostrich. It was so much fun. He almost pecked my finger off though. And one of the girls, Macy, had a birthday on the trip, so we all went out to celebrate her. We really got to experience everyday life in Ocho. It was truly amazing. And I also want to mention a lady named Teresa. She cooked our lunch and dinner every single day of the entire trip, which was so kind of her. And then Miss Jessie delivered our meals every day, and her sweet family spent a lot of time getting to know us, and they taught us a lot about Ocho. Everyone was just so welcoming and so great. I cannot speak higher of this community. While we were there in Ocho, a few of us got unique opportunities to serve based on our skill set. So a couple girls on the trip were education majors. So Lydia, she got to student teach in a middle school. Milana got to teach a Bible class one day. Milana's also very musically talented, like very. She's gonna be famous one day.
Hold up, pause. You guys gotta hear a little snippet here before she gets famous.
Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working.
And she got to play piano with a local girl. Now I think Zero went with her that day and got to play some violin. Sweet Jenna shared her testimony in church one Sunday to the whole congregation, and she touched the girl's heart, and you got to meet with this girl a couple times a week to talk about their walks with Christ. And the sweetest married couple ever, Mondi and Eugene, asked Juby and I, we're both business majors, if we'd be willing to put our heads together and work alongside some local women who had dreams of using their God-gifted talents to start a business and make some money for themselves. And I cannot describe how much that opportunity meant to me each day. This trip really focused on building relationships and learning from the community members. I'm not going to go into a trip reflection in this video, but God definitely taught me things about himself, myself, and about others during this trip. It's really hard to describe, but some things can only be seen and felt in person. I'm just so thankful I got the opportunity to go on this trip to Namibia. Our host parents' grown daughter came to stay with them for a little while, and we got to play with her son Danielle and little baby Eric, and they're just the sweetest family, and that was a gift of its own. Also, at the end of our trip, 3 of us got the common cold, me included. Our host mom made me a bucket of super hot water, and she mixed some Vicks Vapor Rub in it to steam my face, and it cleared me up for that night. While we were there, we also got the unique experience to go on a silent retreat with Pastor Leon. We road tripped to this beautiful wedding venue. It was just all this land for as far as you can see. We spent an entire 8-hour day in complete silence and solitude out in nature and God's creation. We spent the day praying and journaling and just asking God to speak to us and open our hearts to him and what he wants to teach us. That day specifically meant so much to me and honestly helped me begin to debrief the process of the trip, sorting out my thoughts and feelings and just giving them up to the Lord. Also, funny story about that silent retreat. The first like 10 minutes of getting sent out in solitude by myself, I like picked this beautiful rock. I was sitting there. I had a cold, so like I'm all stopped up. So I tried to pop my ears because I couldn't hear anything and literally got vertigo. And if you've never experienced that, it is absolutely terrifying. You get extremely dizzy all at once because your ear is where your balance is held, your equilibrium or whatever it's called. So I fell back and hit my head on a rock. This is the very beginning. So I just laid there for a minute, and then once everything stopped spinning, then I got up. And as I was about to journal what Pastor Leon told us to journal about, my journal fell off the cliff. And I'm already disoriented from having vertigo. Like, it was just the craziest thing. So then I had to walk the long way to go all the way down to the bottom of this cliff and get my journal. This stuff only happens to me, y'all. But anyways, towards the end of the trip, Miss Maria surprised us with a visit to a crocodile farm. That was so much fun. There were so many crocodiles everywhere. They were all females. There was 14, I believe. And then they had little baby ones in its own little exhibit, and they were so tiny. We even got the employee to help snag us some crocodile teeth. So we took some chewing gum and put it at the end of this really long stick. And then he like put the stick down there and grabbed each crocodile tooth. That trip was so much fun. Oh my gosh, we were so thankful for that. The local church also surprised us with a true African adventure safari to the Ocho National Park. Oh my gosh, you guys. We got to see wild animals literally out there roaming freely. It was like being in the real live action of Lion King. It was so cool. Seeing giraffes and elephants and ostriches and animals I don't even know what they're called. We saw some oryx. And we had lunch at one of the watering holes, and we watched all these random species of animals drink water in harmony all amongst each other. And we were there at the watering hole for over 2 hours. It was absolutely incredible. Before leaving Africa to head home, we needed to all test negative for COVID. So we left Ocho at like 4 a.m. one morning to drive the 4 to 5 hours to the capital city of Windhoek to take our COVID test. And we then spent that night at a pretty nice resort. I think it was called Eden for our last night in Africa. And we watched some movies, we played plenty of games. We even had an affirmation circle. This team, you guys, means so much to me. And we went around the circle saying words that describe each person and just how much they meant to each of us. And it was just absolutely beautiful. It was a perfect last night in Africa. Later that night, our COVID tests all came back and we all tested negative for COVID, which is honestly a miracle with how fast the COVID was spreading in Ocho. So our first flight from Windhoek, Namibia was 2 hours to get to Johannesburg, South Africa. Then we had a really long layover there before we flew 9 hours, I think it was, to get to Qatar. So we basically had the same flight path backwards. And then from Qatar, we didn't have any layover. We immediately went from a 9-hour flight to a 15-hour flight to get back to Chicago. And then we all said our dramatic goodbyes in Chicago before we headed off to our separate gates to fly home. I didn't land in Knoxville that night until about midnight, but I was so thankful to be off a plane and on steady ground. So yeah, you guys, when I'm ready, I may do a reflection video talking about this trip, but there were just so many holy moments and just sacred parts of that trip that are just between the Lord and I think He's gifted me with those moments. Selfishly, don't think they need to be shared, but if I'm ready, I may share sometime. We'll see. I also want to say just how weird it is to be back in my apartment by myself when I had literally had 10 roommates for the last like almost 6 weeks. I've been like talking to my pillows. It'll take me a while to adjust fully back to the US, but I just cannot describe to you how much this trip meant to me. I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to get to go. So yeah, I hope you like this longer video in detail explaining what we did. And if you have any questions or you want to share stories of your own, I may get to them down in the comments, but if you guys want to email me personally, you can email me at heavensaudventure@gmail.com. I'm still processing this trip and I will be for a very long time, but I will get back to you eventually. And I want to personally thank each and every one of you that helped contribute financially to my trip. You're the reason I got to go, and I am so thankful for this whole opportunity. And also, if you prayed for me while I was gone, thank you so much. I made it back home safely, and there were so many things that could have gone wrong on this trip that didn't. The Lord was definitely watching over us the whole time, and I definitely attribute that to all the prayer warriors that we had praying for us while we were gone. So thank you so much for that. And on that note, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're able to see a little bit of Ocho, and I'm able to share the community with you in the best way that I can, hopefully. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time, friends. Bye.